Hello, Internet. Gino, that Pinguino Grieco here again with another episode of Deep Listens. This week we are discussing Viewtiful Joe, the most beautiful of all video games. And I'm joined, as always, by Billy the Bastion Rothert.
Man, I don't know how to respond to that.
That's a pretty good one, though.
Yeah. I mean, Bastion for what? For completionists? For the game Bastion?
You like Bastion? I saw over your shoulder you have a new stately Bastion poster.
It's autographed by Logan Cunningham and Greg Kasavin.
Yes. I need to send that. Someone won a copy of that poster for the Giant Bomb Community Endurance Run, and I need to send that out. Stuff's been crazy. The prizes that I am mailing out will be mailed out soon.
Great.
But thank you, Billy, once again for joining us.
Yeah, always a pleasure here to be talking. I'm happy to be talking about Viewtiful Joe. This game has a lot going on mechanically, and it's going to take a little bit of in-depth analysis to get through it all.
And I am also joined by video game PhD. That's not true.
Yeah.
By just PhD candidate Peter Viewtiful Busby.
I think that's really why I picked this game, is I think it taps into my beautiful nature. And I think, now I can't remember, I think Midnight Thunderboy might be one of the greatest nicknames anyone's ever had in the history of the world.
Midnight Thunder. How is that not just a wrestler?
Right? The Midnight Thunderboy.
Yes. So today's a special day for a lot of reasons, one of which the Heat and the Raptors are not playing in the NBA playoffs anymore. They're done.
Maybe the least palatable NBA playoff series I've ever personally witnessed.
It was
just disgusting. It was
incredible to watch. It was like they alternated to see who could score least efficiently.
And damn it if Lowry and DeRozan didn't do their part in that battle.
They did. It's going to be very weird when DeMar DeRozan leaves at the end of this year, and then the team gets better.
Right. It goes to L.A. with apparently Paul George, from what I'm hearing, but I don't think that's happening.
I hope that... You know what? For Paul George's sake, I hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
They play the same position, and DeMar does not... I don't think he would compliment anyone.
Yeah, he compliments literally no one.
He just kind of gets his. But that's enough about the NBA playoffs, although I do like to say Bismack Biyombo's name.
And suddenly he's good, which I did not particularly expect.
Yes, and I can't wait till I can say Bruno Caboclo's name all the time.
Along with Boban. I'm really on the Boban train.
Oh, yes. 7'3", the Boban monster.
So,
yes. So video games.
Viewtiful Joe.
Yes. So
we did a thing.
We discussed the NBA playoffs for a hot second because we do not have feedback from last time.
Yeah, this is your fault, listeners. If you don't want to hear about basketball, send in more feedback.
That's true. You can send it in to Deep Listens Pod on Twitter, deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com, or you can go to deeplistens.libsyn.com. Send us some comments on any of our podcasts on that location. You can also hit the little email or the little tweet icon on the top of that, and it'll send you to the two things I mentioned before. We've got technology. And I know last time on our regular podcast I said we're going to try and tell you what the off-week podcasts are going to be in advance, but for the next off-week podcast, we've got a couple of things in the works, so we can't commit to any of them.
It'll be a pleasant surprise for you guys.
Yes, it'll be a pleasant surprise. But once we know what it is, it'll be tweeted out. So we will disseminate the information. And without further ado, time to get to the Viewtiful Joe.
So I guess let's start with the mechanics, as is our wont.
We will start with the mechanics because we do not want to get to the spoilers. We're not going to break up this podcast into two halves like we usually do, like first podcast with no story stuff and second podcast with story stuff, because Viewtiful Joe just doesn't have that much story that's relevant, and it's a really video game.
It is.
It's a very video game, yeah.
That's true.
So I think I want to start with just like 2 minutes of story, like the opening cutscene, so that listeners have some context.
Joe's got a girlfriend. She gets kidnapped.
Sylvia.
Yeah, so when you turn on the game, you hit new game, pick your file and go. the first scene is of a movie theater with a guy named Joe and his girlfriend Sylvia, and they're watching a flick. Looks like one of those cheesy Asian like martial arts movies, but there's also giant robots, so you know where this is going. And midway through the movie, Sylvia starts trying to make out with Joe. He's like, "Get off me, I want to watch the movie." And all of a sudden, the movie kind of comes to life. We don't see a lot of what's going on the screen because Joe is getting attacked by a female. And before we know it, a hand reaches through the silver screen, grabs Sylvia, pulls her back through the movie screen, and oh no, they are in movie land now. Joe is also pulled in after the hero of the film that they're watching is thrown out of the screen temporarily, gets sucked back in, brings Joe with him, and now Joe is in this movie land world trying to rescue Sylvia. The protagonist of the game, the protagonist of the film, his name is was it Captain Blue?
Captain Blue.
Captain Blue. Captain Blue proceeds to take you through the tutorial levels and shows you around movie land where this cheesy action movie is taking place. Joe gains the powers and mechanics that we're going to examine now and uses them to progress through the subsequent 7 chapters of the game that take us to through the story into the ultimate goal of rescuing Sylvia.
Yeah. So the first thing I want to discuss is the very opening screen when you hit new game, because it gives you 2 choices: adult or child.
It's adults and kids.
Adults and kids. Okay. I thought that maybe this was a setting maybe there's some gore, maybe there's some weird nudity, I don't know. Maybe there's cursing that they blare out. But no, it's not. It's not those. It's a difficulty selection.
It's basically normal and hard, I would say.
Yes.
Maybe easy and hard.
Whatever you want to define it as, but I just am so happy that we have, as a society, mostly moved beyond the super condescending difficulty settings.
Right? There's definitely an implicit moral judgment here, isn't there?
Yeah. Well, it says it. You're a child if you're picking this one, and you're an adult if you pick this one.
They're even if you pick it, there's even weird little background noises, like children cheering, and I forget exactly what happens, but
I think it's whistling and clapping.
Yeah.
For the adult one.
Yeah, they praise you if you pick the adult one, and then they mock you if you pick the child one. Which, if people want to play on the easier difficulty...
I actually just started this thing on kids again, and I don't think it's mocking. I think that's just more like playful laughter.
Okay.
I don't think it's negative.
I still feel like there's an implicit right choice here. It's come on, pick the adult. Be a big boy.
Yes. If it was just called Big Boy and Baby, I feel like that would be more to the point. I mean, it's pretty to the point with kids and adult. But I just do not like the condescension from the difficulty screen. So I'm glad that is not a thing that happens so much anymore. I picked adult because I thought that meant I was just going to get the experience with the blood or whatever. But no, it was just harder. What did you guys play on?
Adult.
Adult?
Yeah.
Okay. This game's hard.
Yeah.
I got stuck and didn't beat the game. I got to the end of episode 4.
What?
Pete, how far did you get?
I finished it. I mean, it wasn't easy, but I finished it.
Okay. I got to the end of I got to 2.5, and then personal stuff got super crazy, and I just was not in a place where I could bang my head against Viewtiful Joe for hours.
Gino gets a pass for sure.
Yeah.
And
Billy gets mercilessly mocked as our resident completionist.
I thought that this would be your jam, though. It seemed to be in the vein of something like a Game of the Year.
No. So here's why. I can never play a Capcom game like this as a completionist because time makes me get bad scores. as a
What?
completionist, I like to just throw more and more hours at a game until I've gotten the 100% bar, because most games that I play completionist style, they don't care how long it takes you to do it. But in Viewtiful Joe, if you want to get perfect scores on every level, you need to do it quickly. So it becomes a speed run game and like a perfect execution game as opposed to a 100% completion game. And I'm not really into those games as much as I'm into completionist games. So you're not quite on the mark if you said this is like my jam, quote unquote, kind of game.
Yeah, let me say, like, while I finished the game, my scores were shitty. Like, at no point were my scores impressive.
So my experience with difficulty setting was I played the game on adult mode. I put about 10 hours into the game and got to I got to the boss of episode 4 out of 7. There are 7 episodes in the game. After episode 4, it kind of changes a little bit. You start going to space, and it's more like a boss rush kind of type deal. Yeah. The actual levels peter off a little bit, and but then I replayed the game on kids mode just a mere hour ago, and I got to chapter 3 in 1 hour. It took me 8 hours to get to chapter 3 in adult mode.
So is it just that the damage is way higher or something? Or
so you start with like max health, and your visual effects meter, the film reel gauge, it makes you slow down time. We're going to talk about all this stuff later. It depletes slower and refills a little bit faster. It's easier to deal damage to enemies. They have more opportunities of vulnerability where you can start getting your combos in on them. And it's just overall easier.
That sounds like the mode I would have enjoyed. Because I did not
enjoyed that mode.
I did not enjoy adult.
So let's just go around the room. Like, who actually had fun on adult mode?
I had fun. Okay. There were a few fleeting moments when I just was in the flow, when adult mode felt like I was cheating, and that was super cool. Like when I actually used the slowdown properly, and I did a dodge, and then you put someone in a state, and then you just combo them, or you like knock someone up in the air and then chase them. But I always found that I would run out of gauge. Sometimes I would be in the flow, and then I would run out of gauge a second too quickly, and then I would just get jacked and immediately die. Because so one of the major mechanics is the special effects gauge. It's
the first one you get in the game.
Yeah, it at first lets you slow down time for a short amount of time. Then you unlock fast forward and zoom in. Fast forward, like you would expect, it makes the game move slightly faster. Joe moves faster. If you hold down an attack button, it does like a rapid fire version of the attack, and he'll keep chaining attacks. And if you just keep chaining, all of a sudden, like little clones of Joe start moving all over the place and attacking everything on the screen. So
also, he heats up and he catches on fire, and then his attacks deal more damage.
Yeah, so that's kind of a crazy combo mode. And then zoom in unlocks a bunch of different
specials.
It's like a modifier on his attack. So like his jump does an aerial attack, or his kick becomes a 360-degree attack instead of a attack that just goes straight. So those two abilities, I found slowdown to be the most useful in my time. But once you run, you can use them, and there's a gauge, and once that gauge is used up, Joe turns from Viewtiful Joe into regular-ass Joe.
Who sucks.
He loses his double jump. He doesn't have any of his skills. He's just a running, jumping fool until his meter fills back up a little bit, and then he goes back to real Viewtiful Joe.
And you take double damage.
Oh, yeah, that too.
You have, at least in adult mode, you start with 5 hearts, and double damage means you can get hit 3 times. And then you die, because most attacks deal 1 heart worth of damage. So it's not fun. If you run out of meter at an inopportune time, it usually means you're just dead. Because all of a sudden you lose the ability to escape. A lot of moves just kind of track to where you are if you don't have slowdown. So they just hit you with no ability to dodge or block. Because there's no blocking in this game, which I appreciate. I like heroes don't block. Heroes dodge and make their opponents look foolish. But,
I think, Gino, the point you were making about flow is a good one. Because I think sort of suitable for a game called Viewtiful Joe, there are you get these moments of aesthetic excellence where like you just look like you're performing very prettily, and that's where the game becomes most fun, when you're just sort of you're comporting yourself the way a hero should. But like you said, those moments really are sort of fleeting.
Yeah, and some of the other mechanics, so the way that you start chaining together into a flow is usually you get kind of a party starter where you dodge an opponent's attack. The game lets you know whether regular enemies are going to be swinging high or low, and you can dodge by ducking or kind of jumping out of the way. Once you cause someone to miss, they enter a slow state that's like, you're too slow. But then when you use your slow motion power on a character who's slowed, any blow to them will just send them rocketing in a direction.
Yeah.
And once you've hit one person who's slowed, any enemy you hit after that will also be sent flying. And so you can just start chaining these long combos where you're punching a guy, you're knocking him up into the air, then you're knocking a person back into like a row of 5 people, and they're all getting knocked back. And then you chase a dude up into the air, and then you knock him down with like a dive kick. And it feels incredible. And then you run out of special effects power, and you get killed by like a regular dude hitting you.
Now, we didn't answer the question that I asked a second ago. Who had fun in adult mode?
I said, I had like a little bit of fun.
How much fun, I guess, would be the operative question.
Yeah, I had little to no fun in adult mode. Like, there were times where I was like, yeah, I did it. Like, I beat this boss after trying 30 times, and that was gratifying. But I would say for anyone listening, first tip on playing Viewtiful Joe, don't feel bad about playing kids mode, because it teaches you how to play the game in a way that's like no risk, very fun. You'll beat the game quickly, and then you can try adult mode now that you know what the fuck you're doing.
Yeah, something that we didn't mention is that this game was pre the advent of real good checkpointing.
Yeah.
You have 3 lives at any time, in any level, and if you lose before reaching the checkpoint at the middle of the level when you get an opportunity to save, you have to start, from the beginning, from the very beginning.
I had to replay a lot of game.
Yeah, there is an upgrade that lets you start where you died, but you have to buy that upgrade first.
Yeah, it's a consumable.
It's a consumable? I didn't know it was a consumable.
Yeah, you get one of them, and then if you die, it's gone. You have to rebuy it. It's not that expensive. Like, it's kind of expensive compared to other consumables, but later in the game it stops really mattering.
Yeah, and it just refills your gauge at whatever your max hearts are, and then you keep going. So
you don't get any more lives either?
No, it's just like, it's a continue. It's like an immediate continue, and if you're in a shitty spot, that means you hit the continue, and then you still don't know what to do, so you just die again.
That is shitty.
And it's like 10. It's enough money that it sucks.
Yeah.
When it's used.
Yeah.
Enough Viewtiful points, V points.
Yeah.
So we talked about the actual mechanics, that we have this thing called slow down, like Slow Joe. We have Mach speed, and we have zoom in, and they alter our states, right? But there's other things you can do to change your mechanics and combat features. And we talked about building V points, and we have an opportunity to spend them on checkpoints as well.
Yeah.
So this game reminded me a lot of a game like Devil May Cry, or any other game that's like a flash game where you have upgrades between levels, and you have to find out how you're going to allocate your points or your currency between levels to optimize your gameplay.
Yeah, this was made by, I believe it was made by
Clover?
Clover.
Yeah, Clover.
AKA I think they were Team Viewtiful for this.
Yeah, they were.
For this game, but the Clover Studios, I believe they made one of the Devil May Cries. So that wouldn't surprise me. Let me make sure. They made God Hand, Okami. Okay, God Hand. That's another really difficult game that they made. They did not make Devil May Cry. My bad. But they are known for difficult, punishing games. So.
And this game is punishing. So some of the moves you can purchase with your Viewtiful points or your V points. It's like a slide kick, which is pretty useful.
Yeah, very useful.
It's useful in slow mode to
clear space.
To clear space, but also close the distance on enemies that might have been like nudged away from you. It helps you extend your combo. Instead of just moving, you do an attack. You've also got a dive kick, which is great for mobility. I think it's I think it's underutilized because it greatly extends your horizontal mobility in the air. You doing this dive kick just sends you on like a 45-degree trajectory shooting downwards.
And he says red hot kick when he does it, and that's pretty great.
Yeah, he does shout out the name of his move every time he uses it, like a true hero. And there's a couple others. There's
an pose.
Yeah, there's the pose. There's and that one works like if you have recently dodged a move, you can zoom in and you do like you strike a pose and every enemy on the screen takes damage, which is pretty nice. Another one that's
also
good.
Invulnerable for the period you're posing. Which
yeah.
Is nice.
There's another one called Utami, I think is what it's called. Ukemi, yeah. And that one basically is if you take damage and you zoom in like right at the right moment, you can negate a big portion of the damage, and that I think might have been more critical than I gave it credit for. I never got it. I think that might have been a game changer.
I don't recall ever using it if I did unlock it.
So what system did you guys play Viewtiful Joe on?
The Wii with GameCube disc.
Controller? Okay. Pete?
Yeah, I played on the GameCube.
Okay, I played GameCube as well, and I was just wondering, so on the GameCube controller specifically, it's a left trigger basically, or left bumper for slow down, right for fast forward, and then C stick for zoom in?
Yeah.
B zooms in as well.
Really?
The B button. It makes it a lot easier to zoom in.
Oh my god, okay, that's what I was going to say, because I was going to say, the buttons made it such that I never zoomed in because this going down to the C stick was not a thing I ever wanted to do because you can't really attack. It's just too far away.
So if we're going to talk about mechanics, we need to talk about game options, and that's something that I actually do every single time I look at a game. Before I hit new game, I go into the options and see if I can adjust the settings to something that I like more or less. And you can change the layout, like the button layout of the controller. There's like 3 different options, like type A, type B, type C, and it lets you pick. And the default can rotate around a little bit. Like you can change where, actually, funny enough, the kick button is always kick no matter what. That never cycles, but the other 3 can kind of cycle between 3 options. Okay. Jumping, punching, and like something else. Jumping, punching, and zoom. Yeah, can rotate.
I mean, I didn't use zoom or haste all that much, to be honest. I guess it's fast forward, not haste in this one. Like pretty much slow down.
Much. I used everything.
Really, I was just throwing slow down constantly.
Slow down just seems to be the most like. The fast forward is really good for dealing with a wave of enemies that cannot block because you heat up and then enemies. So when you stylishly dispatch an enemy, you get juice, which refills your special effects meter. And you will eventually, if you keep chaining for long enough, you'll get stuff like a complete area stun that just stuns everyone on screen, or just big juice that gives you more special effects. It fully refills your special effects meter and like extends it. It extends it beyond the normal maximum. So when you're doing fast forward punches or something on like a conga line of regular enemies, you can usually kill the entire room without really having to think. But
did you guys know that you could use all those abilities together at once?
Yeah, I would combo slow and fast forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're useful. It's just the slow. A lot of enemies have ranged attacks or things that cover wide fields of space. And if you're not in slow, they will just hit you. They just hit you wherever you are, and you can't dodge them. But
like you might need to watch a bullet come at you and punch it back at someone.
Yes.
Yeah, that is pretty sweet when you do that.
If you're not in slowdown, that bullet, like that 3D object doesn't exist. So you just get hit. Versus when you're in slowdown, you can see the bullets and actually knock them away or dodge them. So there are some enemies where, like, very early on, there's a cowboy enemy that has 2 pistols. And if he spins his pistols and then shoots, if you're not in slowdown mode, he will hit you every time. Regardless of where you are, he will hit you. Especially when he does like a jumping, spinning shot, he'll hit you. If you slow down for even a second, you'll see that there are like 3 bullets, maybe 4. And those bullets they're easy to dodge. and easy to knock away. So slowdown mode was just always so much safer than the other powers. I guess zoom in, when you're zooming in, everything gets stunned, right? No one can really attack you when you're zoomed in.
They can attack you when you're zoomed in. You can take damage when you're zoomed in.
Okay.
So I should explain that a little bit, or maybe Pete wants to take over how the damage works while you're being zoomed in.
Honestly, I thought you were invulnerable when you zoomed in too. So, Billy, why don't you tackle this one?
All right. So I thought that the same way, but there's some enemies and some enemy types that can hit you when you're zoomed in. They're usually not enemies directly, but they're like effects or statuses, which is kind of weird. Like one of the bosses, like the third boss in the game, is this shark monster guy. Forget it.
Who is awesome, by the way.
He's got some kind of dumbass name, but he's a pretty cool character. We don't get to see a lot of his character, but he's a really annoying fight. And one of the most annoying parts of that fight is that he has this like command grab type deal where he'll be running at you, chomping at you, and if he comes into contact with you, he gets you in this like 8-second animation of him just like shaking you around in his mouth and throwing you across the screen. And he can catch you in that.
Samuel L. Jackson in Deep Blue Sea.
Basically. Yeah.
Okay. I see it.
But that can grab you while you're in your slow mode. It's one of the first times the slow mode is not invincible. Mm-hmm. Later, when you fight another boss, it's actually a doppelganger of Viewtiful Joe. This Viewtiful Joe doppelganger also has the like Mach speed like clones that shoot at you, and if one of those clones hit you, you get hit in slow mode. So there's a couple spots.
Zoom in though. If you just keep spinning, I think you are permanently safe.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. If you are in spin mode, I'm pretty sure you are invincible. But slow mode by itself is not safe necessarily. Spin mode is safe, but it doesn't last forever.
Yeah. My biggest enemy was helicopters. I just hate helicopters, I learned from Viewtiful Joe.
That's where you have to punch helicopter bullets back.
Yeah, you had to. I learned that, and
you don't have to. I beat the game without I beat that level without punching them back.
But you need to at least slow down, because if you don't slow down, the bullets just hit you whenever you're in front of the helicopter, and you can't jump over it. It was just very frustrating. It got me to learn my powers, but I found that a lot of the time, the difference between me beating the helicopter and not beating the helicopter was whether one of the dudes I kicked went into the helicopter or not. If like hit a little dude into the helicopter, it would take so much damage in slowdown mode that I actually killed it in like 2 dudes. But if I tried to kill it straight up by like knocking bullets back or jumping and punching it, it was just too inconsistent. I would run out of special effects and then die. Which was kind of the story of this game for me. I ran out of special effects and died.
Yeah, finding those, I think technically they're movie reels, but like every 50 of them you find, it bumps up your special meter.
Yeah.
Finding those assumes such critical importance, just because the longer you can spend in special, you're so much better off.
Yeah.
True.
And that's something worth mentioning. This game is, even though there's a lot of brawling and stylish action, there's also a lot of platforming where you're picking up movie reels. They're the equivalent of like a Mario Brothers coin. And the game starts you, every single level, you start with a limited meter until you pick up more of them. Which is kind of infuriating. After you've got the meter and you get to experience what it's like to have almost infinite power juice, and then getting busted back down, it's just the worst.
Yeah, because you can upgrade everything else, but you just can't permanently upgrade your VFX juice.
Yeah, so let's hit a couple more points mechanically before we go into story. We mentioned briefly how the flow of the game works, but I want to talk for just a second about some of like the best combat sequences that we've seen or the best combat parts that we had to experience. I mean, one that comes to mind is in Chapter 2, there's the sequences where there's like a spike barrel rolling towards you in a narrow hallway, and enemies just flood the room, and you have to just go on this huge combo chain. I think you're able to actually defeat almost that entire sequence entirely in slow mode, because as your combos get crazier, you can run into more juice drops and keep the combo going over and over and over again until the new waves jump in on you. That was a really cool sequence because that demonstrated fully what you were truly capable of. You could keep your combo going forever because you had multiple enemies jumping in over and over again in a very narrow space, so they really couldn't get spaced away from you.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed any of the sequences where there was an environmental object that you interacted with your powers in a meaningful way. Like, there's a water droplet in level 2 that if you slow down, the droplet, normally it falls like a little drop on a switch, but if you slow it down, it becomes a gigantic drop, big enough to trigger the switch. Or, like, riding that huge bus. There's a bus that you can ride on, and then if you hit slow mode, it has like a jet booster that will boost it over a huge gap. So anytime I got to use my powers to influence the background, or like the spinning reels where you have to slow them down to know that you're going to hit the right values, it was a cool use of the power. I found them to be frustrating moments in parts just because you're using the resource that you need in combat to keep you alive in order to solve these puzzles, usually when there are still enemies around that need killing, or other things that you need to interact with that you probably would like to have that juice for. But it was clever. I just sometimes wish there was less brawling and more puzzle solving. And Pete, maybe you know better. Does that happen more later in the game?
It's pretty much there is more puzzle solving in like a later level. You're on a submarine and you have to sort of twist it up and down, which I found more annoying than anything else, really. But the focus is pretty much overall on brawling. And it's worth mentioning, sort of, in this brawl structure, how it's set up. And Billy sort of pointed this when he asked what our favorite moments are. But it's sort of a discrete series of trials. It's like, enter this space, clear it, move to the next space, clear X number of enemies. Potentially you find a key, but you find that key by brawling. So it's really like a discrete series of brawl trials as you move forward.
Yeah, and the game will give you a score from Viewtiful to crappy. I didn't get all D's. Is there something worse than crappy?
Not that I saw.
I don't know.
I never got worse than crappy.
That's probably death, really, is worse than crappy.
Yes. Dying. But those getting ranked every single time, like sometimes it was a little unclear why I didn't get a higher score or why I didn't have a lower one. Like I felt like I got jacked really bad, and it's like, oh, you got a ton of style points. It's like, really?
Oh wait, it actually does have a meaning. It's Doe.
Oh, Doe is the worst score? It's from Viewtiful to Doe?
Yeah, and some people say it's actually harder to get in some cases than a Rainbow V because it's pretty difficult to do that bad without getting killed.
Okay, good to know. There, you can drag yourself to the end of a level somehow without dying while still performing terribly by the game's metrics.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of those metrics.
Style.
Now I want to make sure I get the timeline right. This game came out in 2003?
Yeah.
2004.
2004? My bad.
June 26, 2003.
Okay.
And
yep.
Yeah, Devil May Cry came out in 2001. Devil May Cry 2 came out in 2003. I mean, I'm going to draw a lot of similarities between those two games. Because what other games has done the Devil May Cry ranking system in that way before this, before 2001? Can anyone think of a game?
Before 2001?
Yeah, before 2001.
That was the advent of stylish action, so I don't think it was.
So let's just break it down like this. The two games are very similar in nature. This Devil May Cry style as well as this Viewtiful Joe style is you enter a level and there's a series of little missions or scenes among these larger chapter levels. And they're all punctuated by little bits of like time in the middle or space in the middle or time to upgrade. And at the end of each of these little sequences, you get scored based on how stylish you were, how much damage you took, right? How beautiful you were, how much damage you took, and how fast you beat the level. You can't just maximize one of these things. You have to do well on all of them to get a rainbow V, which is the highest score you can get. So you can get everything from A, B, C, D. You can get a regular pink V, and you can also get a rainbow V, which is getting V's in all categories.
Mm-hmm.
This is really hard to do. I got mostly B's and C's when I played on adult.
Yeah.
I got mostly pink V's and A's when I played on kids, and I really didn't play much differently.
Yeah. It's a shame the difficulty was such a big factor.
It's a huge difference. A huge difference. I mean, it's almost like there was no medium mode. There was easy mode, and then there was hard mode. And hard mode was actually fucking hard.
I think there are a couple after adult, too.
There are.
Yes.
There's
so it even
V
ramps
rating.
it up further.
There's V rating.
Yeah, so I think it's worth... We've been down the difficulty road before. I think it's worth mentioning, like, when you are in it and doing well, like, that flow element it's very cool. Like, I found that the most enjoyable moments for me were when the game threw, like, a bunch of regular enemies at me in a row and basically said, do with them what you will. Because you could style on them for a while and break out some pretty unique and cool combos because they kind of allowed you to. They were not especially difficult. They would get combo or stun locked, and so you could really flex your muscles and deal with them however you saw fit. Whereas a lot of the bigger, more difficult enemies, they just have something that made them invulnerable, or something where if you didn't slow down at the right moment, you just get hit, and there is nothing you could do about it.
There was one enemy that had this like electric move. It was like an anti-air move, and it would trigger on jump sometimes, so he'd like nail you if you just jumped. And it was basically like Blanca's electric fireball, or like an electric spin move from Street Fighter.
Yeah.
It was pretty fucking annoying.
Or some enemies that like turn electric and then stomp the ground, and they are invulnerable while they're doing it, and then all the ground around them is damaging. That just means you have to be far away from them and avoid them for five seconds or so. But it's not super fun standing on the other side of the screen and just kind of dodging them. Maybe boomerangs were the answer. Maybe shocking pink was the answer.
There were
Boomerangs
consumable
were always the answer.
weapons. There were consumable weapons. That also happened in Devil May Cry. There was like consumable items that would like clear out a room. It was called holy water in that game. And here, boomerang sort of behaved actually more like a Castlevania style consumable weapon, like one of the crosses or something like that, or the holy water in Castlevania.
Yeah.
And they became necessary for some bosses. I mean, I'm talking really necessary. Most of the games that have consumable weapons like this, they're luxury, and they help on the hardest difficulties where you need to optimize certain fights. But for casual playthroughs, you can probably get through a whole game without using them. Here, you probably needed to use them for a couple boss fights. Some that I'm thinking about are the second chapter with the vampire bat guy.
Oh,
the vampire bat. Oh, wait, is that first chapter?
Yeah, first chapter is
yeah, sorry.
vampire bat. And
Yeah,
the second's the
Charles
Rhino.
III. When he turns into bats, if you're not hitting him with boomerangs, it's kind of hard to kill enough bats quickly enough.
And then when you fight Doppelganger, Viewtiful Joe, he will summon like images of himself that will circle around you and follow you. You can never reach them, so they're just hovering around you. And if you don't boomerang them, they're gonna close in on you and kill you.
You can, like, if you have to have enough gauge to do it, but if you spin kick and just wait, eventually you can hit.
It's just so hard though. It basically breaks your entire momentum of the fight.
Yeah, you just got to sit there and wait and drain your whole gauge.
That's the boss that I got stonewalled on. I couldn't find an efficient way to deal with it. The fights would take me like 30 minutes and I would just lose. And so I spent probably 2 hours banging my head against that boss.
and then playing the whole level over because there's no good checkpointing.
Yeah, well, what I ended up doing was starting the game over on kids mode and getting almost to that level in 1 hour.
Okay.
So
well, that's good to know. So why don't we take a quick break? When we come back, we will be in Spoiler Town talking about the story of Viewtiful Joe. I want to ask you guys some questions about what your favorite boss names were. So when we get back, we will hit all that stuff. All right. Be back in a minute.
Good.
Peace. All right, and we are back with more Viewtiful Joe. The Viewtiful does not stop. And so I felt a good place to start with discussing the Viewtiful Joe story is what are our favorite boss names? Because this game has style out the wazoo. It is stylish in its appearance. It is stylish in its action. And the names are stylish as hell as well. My favorite is the Iron Ogre, Hulk Davidson.
That is a strong pick. Personally, I might be influenced by just how much I love him, but I do love the Aquatic Terror, Grand Bruce.
Yep, that's a good one.
I'm a big fan of the Inferno Lord, Fire Leo.
Okay, but
that one just I like Fire Leo, but it just seems a little obvious, like he's a lion and he's on fire.
Yeah, that's okay. But what about Pete? What's the Blade Master Alistair you mentioned?
My God, just the King, the Titan, the greatest. Alistar, a.k.a. Al, a.k.a. the Blade Master, a.k.a. Midnight Thunder Boy. The monster, the king. I love him.
Oh my
He's half
goodness.
man, half goat. Half demon.
Oh no. Half man, half goat, half demon. All amazing.
He's a killer.
The
Only wants to
Midnight
test
Thunder
his
Boy.
own strength.
Oh, man, this game has style. That's what made it so sad that it's so hard. I just wanted to keep playing it, but no. Instead, it's just bats everywhere and laser beams and
Hot death.
hot death. and
If
slow
you're
down.
not good at this game, you just get shit on.
Yep. So, what did you guys think of the story? Other than the name, other than the Midnight Thunder Boy, a.k.a. Al.
Okay, do we? Well, I'm gonna ask you a question here, and I don't have the answer. Do you guys have any familiarity with Viewtiful Joe 2?
No,
I
do
have
not.
the game, but I haven't started it yet. I would never
Alright.
do that since I haven't finished Viewtiful Joe 1 yet.
So let me start with a problematically minor part of the story, but maybe get some redemption in the end. Sylvia, because Sylvia is just like the quintessential damsel in distress. Like the movie, or the whole game starts with her wanting to make out with Joe, and he's just like not having it.
And he's in a movie theater. He's like, no, I'm trying to watch this movie that I've seen a bunch of times. Like, they never replay it in the theater, Sylvia. Come on. Let's be
And,
serious.
And she does get a small measure of redemption at the end. I shouldn't say she. The developers get a small amount of redemption at the end in that they give her a V-Watch and she gets her superpowers. Like, she becomes part of this a little bit.
I know that in Viewtiful Joe 2, like, she's a playable character and you can kick ass with her.
Okay, good. Because I found for the first 98% of the game, the deployment of, and her fucking character name is Sexy Sylvia. I found that, and she dresses in a cheerleader outfit at the end, for Christ's sake. But I found the deployment of Sylvia for 98% of the game to be just horrendous, basically. But I was wondering how the turn gets made in Viewtiful Joe 2.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't play it. I just know that she is a playable character, and she's actually a playable character in Viewtiful Joe 1. If you beat the game on a specific difficulty, you can also play as Dante from Devil May Cry, which is one of the reasons why this game is not a reason, but it's this game realizing in and of itself that, yeah, it's a Capcom game, and it took the style from Devil May Cry's ranking system and put it in here too. So,
Yeah, the damseling at the very beginning of the game was just like, come on. This is just... I know you don't need a lot of reason for Joe to be running through Movie Town punching dudes, but, like, all you had to do was just have him be in the movie theater by himself, and the same things happen.
Yeah,
And the story is exactly the same.
He likes the movie, and like he wants to be a hero. He has enough intrinsic. He forgets about Sylvia. Like, he doesn't even remember he has to save her for the first 4 missions.
No, that's not true. He is trying to save Sylvia because some of the bosses make comments as to why they need her.
Yeah, but there's a deliberate scene, I think like it's in a third message or something, where one of the bosses makes a comment about Sylvia, and Viewtiful Joe basically goes, "Oh shit, yeah, I gotta save her. I totally forgot about that."
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's a moment. There's definitely a moment.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, then again, wouldn't you sort of get caught up in this new world where you're a superhero and think, oh man, I forgot that I was supposed to be doing something?
Yeah, no,
I mean,
totally. I would, but then that just points out you don't need Sylvia.
Yeah, I'm happy she gets a larger role in the later games, and I'm happy that you can play as her in Viewtiful Joe 1. That moment just seemed it wasn't super necessary. Like, I liked Sylvia way more than Joe, because she's actually trying to have a real human relationship, and he's like, no, I want to watch this Sentai movie. No, I want to watch this knockoff Power Rangers instead. In this empty movie theater, but with just the two of us.
So, let's get into this quote unquote story.
Yes.
Pete can confirm this. The story of this game doesn't really turn on until like the last 2 chapters.
Yeah, no, they toss a lot of exposition into those final cutscenes.
So
what's going on?
Let me see if I get this straight. And Pete might have to correct me if I get anything mixed up. You guys do get grabbed into this world. You're taken into movie land, but you don't really know why at the start. Through some dialogue with the bosses, like 1 through 5.
Oh, like the Iron Ogre Hulk Davidson?
Yeah.
Yes, or the Aquatic Terror Grand Bruce, yes.
Okay.
Like those charming characters, you get little bits and pieces of like they actually needed Sylvia for a reason. This wasn't a coincidence. And we find out that the bosses and the other subsequent bad guys in Viewtiful Joe universe want to leave Movie Land and go take over the real world.
Oh, no.
They need the help of someone on the outside to do this. They picked Sylvia. We don't quite know why. We don't get to know why until the very end, but Joe keeps fighting his way through level after level, scene after scene of, scenarios and bosses until we have to fly on a fucking spaceship to a space station, and all of a sudden we find out, plot twist, Captain Blue was behind it the whole time.
Oh, no.
That's about as far as my story knowledge goes, so Pete might have to carry the torch the rest of the way.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I mean, basically what we're saying is Viewtiful Joe set the stage for BioShock. There'd be no BioShock without Viewtiful Joe.
Oh, no.
But so here's I'll pick up where Billy left off. So King Blue, well, Captain Blue becomes King Blue when he's evil, but Captain Blue was actually a director in the real world. He's a very famous director for a while, but then he got brushed off as a fad, and he had a real problem with the ephemerality of his creations. So he goes. Now I'm trying to remember this convoluted ass story. So then he
got sucked in?
He gets sucked into Movie Land somehow, but he's also, another plot twist, Sylvia's dad.
Oh, no.
Forgot that, yeah.
They basically recite the exact dialogue from Star Wars. The whole, I'm your father, no you're not, my father's dead. And then they need Sylvia's blood to escape. But then Viewtiful Joe defeats King Blue. King Blue then becomes kind of good and summons aliens to create a new movie.
Yeah, he basically just says, all right, this movie's shit now. Let's have a fucking alien invasion. That's going to be sweet, right, guys?
And he promises a trilogy, basically, which they never delivered.
I have a question.
I will try to answer it.
I'm going to raise my hand. I have a question.
What do you got?
Why does he train Viewtiful Joe then?
Right?
Right. Why does he tutorialize him? Why does he give him
that's
powers?
how great movies are made.
But I thought he didn't care about the movie. He wanted to be out with his boys, with the Midnight Thunder Boy.
I mean, he has
with
to
the
make
rest
it
of the
interesting,
Jado organization.
or else it's not good.
I think the only explanation you could offer is there is a conflict between his instincts as an auteur and as an evil mastermind.
Does the game give you any evidence with which to base that claim?
Literally
No
none.
idea.
There is
Okay, great.
no explanation.
Nope, not even a little bit. Okay, good to know. All right, so is that the extent of our story discussion for Viewtiful Joe? Because I don't feel like there's much else to discuss.
No, look, okay, I do have some comments. All right,
Okay.
there's some that did strike me. So one is, I think Viewtiful Joe. I'll say a couple of things. One, I think Viewtiful Joe is interesting as a critique, perhaps, or sort of a reductio ad absurdum of sort of the fantasy of placing yourself into video games, right? Sort of the fantasy of engaging in the media as yourself, right? He literally gets sucked into the movie. And I think in that capacity, it's very prescient as a critique of reality TV culture.
Okay.
Right? Sort of people want to become part of the entertainment themselves.
Okay. Like us with this
I'll
podcast
fuck
we're doing.
this.
Yeah, kind of like us. But we're contributing.
Oh, man. We're walking a tightrope here, guys. Pete's trying to shatter all of our legitimacy.
Now we're part of the zeitgeist now. We're advancing the culture industry.
We're on
great.
the mezzanine looking down upon this shit show.
Okay, I can see that. Does the game posit any of that other than just the structure of the nature of the game, its central conceit?
See, I think what would make Pete's case a little more compelling, and I'm not saying Pete's case isn't compelling as it is, but what would really seal the deal was if there was any kind of fourth wall breaking scenario, more so than what there was. I mean, I think you see a little bit of fourth wall ishness when you're in slow mode and you can see like the gaps between the film. You know, it sort of makes you realize that, oh, you're basically looking at a movie, but it's actually a game, but it's actually a movie kind of thing. And those are like little hints at a fourth wall, but there's no actual fourth wall breaking. And I think if there was, Pete's case would be even stronger. That they were really trying to get the player to interact with this person who is interacting with a movie.
And there's no real critique. I mean, they don't really admonish Joe for indulging in this fantasy.
No,
right?
like beyond making him kind of goofy, they're pretty much celebrating Joe.
I think he made him kind of goofy.
But he's
Are
goofy
you talking
in a
about
cool
the
way.
developers? The developers making Joe goofy?
Well, like just generally Joe's a goofy character, whoever's fault that may be.
He's goofy, but his goofiness is powerful.
He came up with a pretty cool
Yeah.
catchphrase, though.
Which
Hen-
one?
Shinagogo.
Henshinagogo, baby.
And he
Yes.
gets Sylvia, despite her damsel status.
Yep.
True.
Clearly, he somehow won over Sylvia's heart before he became a weird pink superhero.
I don't know how that works. I guess
Despite
I've been
his-
doing it wrong.
His
He's got
complete
really nice
dismissal of her.
triceps. Yeah, that's probably it.
Apparently, all you got to do to get a female's attention just ignore her and then let her get kidnapped by a giant robot.
Also, drag her to what appears to be a children's movie.
Yeah.
Well,
So
they're
what were
making
your-
Power Rangers pretty soon, right?
They are. They're
So Gino's getting married. He must have done a lot of ignoring and
oh yeah.
Power Rangers movies to get to where he is right
Totally.
now.
Yep.
Looking
That's-
back on
that's
it,
the
was
script.
it all what was it all worth it?
That could be our off-week podcast next week. Gino explains how he won his fiance's heart using the lessons of Viewtiful Joe.
That's true. Yep. It's a lot of tight pink spandex. A lot of that.
That's good advice for our listeners.
Yep.
We get into
So
the real
Pete-
shit here on Deep Listens.
We do. The deepest. Spandex, it goes deep. So, Pete, were there any other things you had in your notes?
Yeah. Okay, so there was one other moment I actually found particularly poignant. And I'm trying to remember the actual phrasing of the cutscene. But there's this one moment where Captain Blue, and all his convoluted ramblings, was talking about basically the responsibility we have as both cultural producers and cultural consumers. It's sort of like, the best way I think I could describe it is sort of, at a certain point, what's this game called? Viewtiful Joe. At at a certain point, Viewtiful Joe turns a lot like Toy Story, but with like games, movies instead of toys, right? Like basically these movies come to life, and we realize, and they realize, that we've been neglecting them for years, right? So I think there's this question about the ephemerality, especially of these quote unquote new media, and how they impose different moral responsibilities on us potentially as producers and consumers. And caveat, I'm getting this all from like 2 lines of Captain Blue's dialogue, so take it how you will.
Yeah. I'm just glad you were able to find anything in this game.
I was listening deeply.
Yes. I'm glad. I would have listened deeper if I could have gotten deeper into the game. Also, when I was trying to listen to what Charles the 13th had to say, I couldn't really make it out because he had a weird high-pitched voice.
Yeah, no, his ramblings were gibberish. But I think, like, Captain Blue is raising this question about, you know, what happens when the fads of yesteryear circle back around. You know, if these things had their own sort of critical agency that we forgot about or never really recognized.
Yeah, what happens if the Power Rangers become in again? What then?
They're actually rebooting Power Rangers.
They're rebooting Jumanji too. Like the nostalgia
What?
cycle is just accelerating. Yeah, it's going to be with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson too.
What?
Yeah.
Who is he? Is he Robin Williams?
Yeah, and he says he promises to pay tribute to Robin Williams with his portrayal of the character. And I'm just curious how The Rock's going to pay tribute to Robin Williams.
I believe in Dwayne Johnson because he is a real man.
That's
He
true.
is incredible. And he does everything. Like, anytime anybody asks him to be in a movie, he is all over it.
He just asks, he has one question, will the checks clear? And if they say yes, he's in. But,
Just
wow,
unreal.
I am befuddled that Jumanji has had its time already. I mean,
Yep.
I guess in a rapidly accelerating nostalgia culture, it makes sense that a game like this might have something important to say, or have something to say about it. And that's clearly what the game is. Just by making it based on Sentai fiction, and when I say Sentai, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I mean something like Power Rangers or Ultraman. It's that Japanese, generally like Saturday morning cartoon where a bunch of people dress up in Technicolor spandex and then fight giant cartoonish enemies, usually in elaborate costumes. And so by drawing upon that base of fiction, I think it harkens back to like a 1980s and 90s style that, oddly enough, is still popular today. Like when I was in Japan, my host family, their kids would watch the equivalent, like the modern Ultraman, just every day or every weekend, which was kind of nuts that that's still a thing that's happening. I got an Ultraman, like there was an Ultraman on my sodas when I would get sodas from the vending machine, or Kamen Rider. No, it was Kamen Rider. That was the one, which is another Sentai thing.
So anyway, anything else about Viewtiful Joe?
Yeah, one more. I got one more. This was my pick, so I had to stand by Viewtiful Joe's story.
Boomerang.
I'm just so impressed with how much Pete was able to squeeze out of this game. Actually,
I could have helped, but
PhD candidate right here.
I couldn't get past level 2.5, so
it's
I'm
all
sorry.
right. I mean, sometimes you gotta do your part. This is me
Put
jumping.
the team on your back.
That's what I'm saying. So there is, in a related criticism to this sort of fad economy that I was referring to, there's also a question of the obsolescence of mediums, right? Okay. So the reason why the movie land people need to escape while they're so sort of upset about this is because celluloid, the physical medium on which they're instantiated, is becoming obsolete, right? There's not going to be any more celluloid. So they're going to slowly, for whatever reason, like, again, this doesn't make too much sense, but they're going to slowly decay and die because celluloid's obsolete. Nobody gives a shit about it anymore, right? So again, I think we're raising a question of sort of the permanence of the media we create, right? And sort of what happens when you make the jump from, 8 tracks to CDs to MP3s, right? to whatever's going to happen in the future. What do you lose, right? What just simply isn't ported from vinyl to MP3s, and so we just lose it forever.
Yep. You lose it until the hipsters find it, and then they claim it, and no one else wants it.
Yeah, and then the hipsters just ruin it for everybody.
Exactly.
Damn hipsters.
Yeah, so I guess that is a pretty good claim. I guess what you lose, oftentimes it's not like you're losing something of a higher quality. Once you move it over to a newer form of media, it's generally more easily, what is the term I want, dispensed to other people who are consuming that newer form of media. So once you lost VHSs, it's not like you lost a quality that was inherent to the VHS when you moved over to DVD.
No, the question, yeah, you gain quality, like you said, but the question here is, what about those things we don't choose to move? Like, all the vinyl doesn't become MP3.
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
As each change is made, certain subsets just don't get ported. In this case, Captain Blue.
But is that any more discouraging than when you're on a stable medium, like, say, for example, paper? Paperback was pretty much the go-to medium for novels for, 1,000 years almost? And most people don't even read or pay attention to 99% of all that has been written. So is that any more disconcerting, more or less disconcerting, just because we still use that medium? Like, the medium itself is not going out of the way, but is not falling by the wayside, but we don't treat that media with any regard anyway.
Yeah, just because sort of the sheer scale of production, you couldn't possibly pay attention to the vast majority of it in the first place.
Yeah. So I guess when you talk about it that way, do you kind of trust that cultural custodians are doing a good job in choosing what to move forward and what to leave behind? And some would say yes, some would say no. And I think it is interesting that in the modern day you can actually participate in some of that archiving yourself, if you so choose. Like, I recently purchased for my dad a vinyl to MP3 converter.
Nice.
You could take any of his old records and put it on there and get yourself some MP3s out of it. So it's not as though the custodians of this stuff have to be officials like in the Library of Congress or people or capitalists that just want to make money off of re-releasing these properties or reconditioning these properties. Now, at least consumers can buy studio-level equipment to make that conversion themselves.
Yeah, and I think you raised an excellent point, Gino. My only sort of standing caveat would be, I don't know if we're necessarily in the position to make these sort of decisions in real time. You know what I mean? Like, we might not know at this point what will be potentially valuable in the future.
Certainly.
Valuable in a cultural sense as opposed to an economic sense.
Which is why we need to archive everything forever. That's why the internet exists.
Exactly. And I mean, in suitable Viewtiful Joe fashion, none of these questions are taken up in any capacity whatsoever.
Nope. But he dances when he fights, and that's really great. It's so stylish.
It is beautiful.
So good.
Throws out cool hand motions. He has his tongue hanging out most of the time.
He does. Yeah, so I think that's it for our discussion of Viewtiful Joe. Unless anyone has some closing thoughts. Pete, do you have another hot take?
I just wish Viewtiful had caught on more as like a term. Do you think it's too late for us to like try to bring it back?
I think it might have. The sun might have set on Viewtiful making a big hit in the lingo.
It had its chance and it missed it.
Maybe this podcast episode, like the title can just be "Can Viewtiful Make a Comeback?" !
Yeah, sure.
Can we make fetch happen?
No, fetch is not going to happen.
Damn it.
So okay. I would say this game is definitely worth playing, but you need to realize before you get into it that it's either going to be a very, very casual experience, lots of fun, but very casual and not very long, or a banging your head against the wall
simulator.
And you're going to be needing to play and replay a lot of levels and achieve a high level of mastery in a very short amount of time, or else you're going to get punished.
Yeah.
And it's going to be not fun.
There are some games where difficulty, people like to chest pound about difficulty. Viewtiful Joe is no joke. When you die, the checkpoints don't checkpoint well. You lose everything. It's not like you keep leveling up or you can just bash your head against it and level your way through. Like, Viewtiful Joe will get you.
And you kind of can level up a little bit because your V points stick around, but once there's
keep playing.
Yeah, once there's nothing left to upgrade. Yeah, once there's nothing left to upgrade, it's just you in the game. And you're either going to get better or you're going to quit.
Yeah, heroes don't block,
I chose
bro.
quit.
Heroes don't block.
Heroes don't block.
Heroes don't block.
If you have any commentary on Viewtiful Joe or any feedback for the show, remember at DeepListensPod, DeepListensPodcast@gmail.com, or DeepListens.libsyn.com for all of our shows and all of our comment sections. So, Billy, it is your turn to pick what game we play next. What will it be?
Yes, it is my turn. I feel like I haven't picked a game in a long time. I actually can't remember the last game that I picked.
It's been a while since I could hold my head up.
All right, shut up. So we're gonna play a game called Jotun.
No, I picked Pokemon Snap. Did you pick The Witness? No, P picked The Witness. Crystal Chronicles we picked together. Oddworld Stranger's Wrath was the
I was going to say, was
the one.
The last?
Yeah.
That seems like it was forever.
Wow. Yeah, well, anyway, I'm picking this game called Jotun. It's a 2015 release, developed by Thunder Lotus Games. The developer's name alone justifies this pick. It's about a recently deceased Viking woman who needs to impress the gods by defeating them in combat so that she can get to the hall, the Norse Hall of Valhalla.
That is a great synopsis. That is an exciting synopsis. And
the game is not very long. It's really just a series of boss fights similar in nature to Shadow of the Colossus.
Or Titan Souls.
Is there any chance Grendel makes an appearance in this?
I don't think Grendel shows up, but then again, I don't know.
It's a non-zero percent chance.
One thing that I do know about this game is that it's hand-drawn, frame by frame.
Yeah, we saw it at PAX East a year ago, and it was gorgeous. And they didn't even have all their frames of animation done at that point. Like, some of the dodge animations, the character would turn into a stick figure. And it still looked pretty.
Yeah. Was the only other game I can think of that was that game where you were like a wolf with a paintbrush? Was that hand-drawn? Okami, was that?
Okami was made by the people that made Viewtiful Joe.
No, it was not.
Okami?
It had some hand-drawn stuff. No, I'm saying to the hand-drawn part.
Yeah.
Nah, it was cel-shaded graphics.
Okay.
It was 3D.
That was another good-looking game, though.
It was.
Okami was beautiful. Very long. A very long game.
It's Legend of Zelda, but a wolf.
Except there was a Legend of Zelda
not that
Twilight Princess.
Not that one, no.
Arguably the most well-made one in the series.
Arguably. Though I don't know that a lot of people share that argument. But we can discuss that another time. Thank you, Pete.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Make sure you stay beautiful.
Thank you, Billy.
Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. I look forward to talking about Jotun. Had fun with Viewtiful Joe. You guys should pick it up. It's usually probably going to be pretty cheap in your local game store. So it's definitely worth your time.
And thank you to our beautiful audience. Till next time, peace!